Aileen Wuornos, born Aileen Carol Pittman, February 29th, 1956, Rochester, Michigan, died October 9th, 2002, age 46, Florida State Prison. Cause of death, ejection by lethal injection. Spouse, Louis Gritz Fell, married 1976, annulled 1976. Partner, Tyria Moore, 1986 to 1991. She got one child. Conviction, 6 counts of first degree unaliving. Criminal penalty, 6 death sentences. Victim, 7. Span of crimes, November 30th, 1989, November 19th, 1990. Country, United States. State, Florida. Weapons, high standard 2.22 revolver. Date, apprehended January 9th, 1991. Aileen Wuornos was born Aileen Carol Pittman on February 29th, 1956, in Rochester, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit. Her mother, Diana Wuornos, born 1939, was age 14 when she married Eileen's father, 18-year-old Leo Pittman, 1936 to 1969. On June 3rd, 1954, on March 14th, 1955, Diane gave birth to Eileen's older brother Keith. After less than 2 years of marriage, the 2 months uh, before Eileen was born, Diana filed for divorce. She gave birth to Eileen at the age of 16. Reynolds never met her father. In 1967, Leo Pittman was sentenced to life imprisonment for kidnapping and aping a 7-year-old girl. Leo Pittman, a diagnosed schizophrenic, committed suicide by hanging in prison in January 30th, 1969. In January 1960, when Eileen was almost 4 years old, Diane abandoned her children, leaving them with her maternal grandparents, Lori and Britta Wuornos, who legally adopted Keith and Eileen on March 18th, 1960. Both of the grandparents were alcoholics. By the age of 11, Eileen began engaging in sexual activity at school in exchange for cigarettes, drugs, and food. She had also engaged in sexual activity with her brother. Eileen said that her grandfather had sexual assaulted and beating her when she was a child. Before beating her, he would force her to strip out of her clothes. In 1970, at the age of 14, she became pregnant after being aped by a family friend. Eileen gave birth to a boy at a home for unwed mothers on March 23rd, 1971, and the child was placed up for adoption. A few months after her son was born, she dropped out of school. At the time that her grandmother died of liver failure. When Eileen was age 15, her grandfather threw her out of the house, leaving in the woods near her old home. Eileen supported herself through prostitution. On May 27th, 1978, at the age of 18, Eileen was arrested in Jefferson County, Colorado for driving under the influence, disorderly conduct, and firing a .22 caliber pistol from a moving vehicle. She was later charged with failure to appear. In 1976, Eileen hitchhiked to Florida, where she met 69-year-old yacht club president Louis Gritz Fell. They married quickly, and the announcement of their nuptials was printed in the local newspapers, society pages. Eileen continually involved herself in confrontations at the local bar and went to jail briefly for assault. She also hit Fell with his own cane. Yo, what? Leading him to gain a restraining order against her within weeks of the marriage. She returned to Michigan, where on July 4th, 1976, she was arrested at Bernie's Club in Mansalona, Antrim County, and charged with assault and disturbing the peace for throwing a cue ball at the bartender's head. Oh my gosh. On July 17th, her brother Keith died of esophageal cancer, and Eileen received $10,000 from his life insurance. Eileen and Phil annulled their marriage on July  21st, after only 9 weeks. In August 1976, Eileen was given a $105 fine for drunk driving. She used the money inherited from her brother to pay the fine and sent the rest within 2 months buying luxuries, including a new car, which she wrecked shortly afterwards. In 1978, at the age of 22, she attempted suicide by shooting herself in the stomach. Between the ages of 14 and 22, she attempted suicide 6 times. Damn. On May  20th, 1981, Eileen was arrested in Edgewater, Florida for the armed robbery of a convenience store where she stole $35 and 2 packs of cigarettes. She was sentenced to prison on May 4th, 1982, and released on June 30th, 1983. On May 1st, 1984, Eileen was arrested for attempting to pass forged checks at a bank in Key West. On November 30th, 1985, she was named as a suspect in the death of a revolver and ammunition at Pasco County. January 4th, 1986, Eileen was arrested in Miami and charged with car theft, resisting arrest, and obstruction of justice for providing identification bearing her aunt's name. Miami police officers found a .38 caliber revolver and a box of ammunition in a stolen car. On June 2nd, 1986, Volusia County deputy sheriffs detained Eileen for questioning for a male companion accused of her pulling a gun in his car and demanding $200. Eileen was found to be carrying spare ammunition, and police discovered a .22 pistol under the passenger seat where she had been accompanied. In 1986, 30-year-old Eileen met 24-year-old Tyra Moore, a motel maid at a Daytona Beach bar called Zodiac. They moved in together, and Eileen supported them with her earnings as a prostitute. On July 4th, 1987, Daytona Beach police detained Eileen and Moore at a bar for questioning regarding an incident in which they were accused of assault and battery with a beer bottle. On March 12th, 1988, Eileen accused a Daytona Beach bus driver of assault. She claimed that he pushed her off the bus following a confrontation. Moore was listed as a witness in the incident. Later at her trial, Wuornos stated, "It was love beyond imaginable. Earthly words cannot describe how I felt about Tyra." Before her execution, Eileen claimed to still be in love with Tyra. Eileen murdered 7 men within 12 months. All men were motorists between the ages of 40 and 65. Richard Charles Mallory, age 51, electronics store owner, and Clearwater, date of unaliving, November 30th, 1989. Eileen claimed that Richard beat, aped, and sodomized her after he drove her to an abandoned area for sexual services. Richard was Eileen's first victim, and she claimed to have unalived him in self defense. Later, it became known that Richard had previously been convicted of attempted ape in Maryland. Eileen made no mention of this until she stood trial, and Tyra never claimed she mentioned it to her. 2 days after the unaliving, a Volusia County deputy sheriff found Richard's abandoned vehicle on December 13th. His body was found several miles away in a wooded area. He had been shot several times, and 2 bullets with left lung were found to have been the cause of death. David Andrew Spears, age 47, construction worker in Winter Garden. He was declared missing as of May 19th, 1990. On June 1st, 1990, his naked body was found along US 19th Circuit County. He had been shot 6 times with a .22 pistol. Charles Edmund Carsgadden, age 40, part-time rodeo worker. Date of unaliving, May 31st, 1990. On June 6, 1990, his naked body was found in Pasco County. He had been shot 9 times with a .22 caliber weapon. The body had been wrapped in an electrical blanket and was badly decomposing when found. Witnesses saw Eileen in possession of Charles's car, and Eileen had also pawned a gun identified as belonging to Charles. Peter Abraham Sims, age 65, retired merchant seaman. In June 1990s, Peter left Jupiter, Florida for Arkansas. On July 4th, 1990, his car was found in Orange Springs, Florida. Tyra and Eileen was seen abandoning the car, and Eileen's handprint was found on the interior door handle. His body was never found. Troy Eugene Burris, age 50, sausage salesman from Ocala, Florida. On July 31st, 1990, he was reported missing. On August 4th, 1990, his body was found in a wooded area along State Road 19 in Marion County. He had been shot twice. Charles Richard Dick Humphreys, age 56, retired United States Air Force major, former state child abuse investigator, and former chief of police. Date of unaliving, September 11th, 1990. On September 12th, 1990, his body was found in Marion County. He was fully clothed and had been shot 7 times in the head and torso. His car was found in Swanee County. Walter Gino Antonio, age 67, trucker, security guard, reserve police officer. On November 19th, 1990, Walter nearly naked body was found near a remote Lodge Road in Dixie County. He had been shot 4 times. 5 days later, his car was found in Brevard County. On July 4th, 1990, what is with these July dates? Eileen and Tyra abandoned uh, victim Peter's car after they were involved in an accident. Rhonda Bailey, who witnessed the accident, provided police with a description of 2 women, which after led to a media campaign to locate them. Police also found some of the victims' belongings in pawn shops. Eileen's fingerprint was found on a receipt at one of the pawn shops, matched the print to what was left on Peter's car. Eileen had a criminal record in Florida, and samples of her prints were in the database. On July 9th, 1991, Eileen was arrested at the Last Resort Biker Bar in Volusia County on a pretext of an outstanding warrant in the name of Lori Grody. Police located Tyra the next day in Pittston, Pennsylvania. She agreed to elicit a confession from Eileen in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Tyra returned with the police to Florida, where she was put up in a motel under police guidance. She named numerous telephone calls to Eileen, pleading to help and clearing her name. 3 days later, on June 16th, 1991, Eileen confessed to the murder. She claimed that men had tried to ape her and she unalived them in self defense. In November 1991, Eileen was legally adopted by 44 Irene Parallel, with who Eileen had no previous contact or relation. After Irene saw Eileen's photo in a newspaper. What? Why would you want to adopt someone who's way older than you? That makes no sense. Like, girl, you crazy. On January 14th, 1992, Eileen went to trial for the murder of Richard Charles Mallory. Although previous convictions are normally inadmissible in criminal trials under Florida's Williams rule, the prosecution was allowed to introduce evidence related to her other crimes to show a pattern of illegal activities. On January 27th, 1992, Eileen was convicted of Charles's unaliving to help from Tyra's testimony. At her sentencing, psychiatrist for the self-defense testified that Eileen was mentally unstable and diagnosed with a borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. 4 days later, she was sentenced to death. Yo, what? Eileen's defense made efforts during the trial to introduce evidence that Charles was previously convicted for attempted ape in Maryland. On March 31st, 1992, Eileen pled no contest to the unalivings of Charles Richard Humphreys. Troy Eugene Burris, Richard Humphreys, and David Andrew Spears, saying she wanted to get right with God. In her statement to the court, she said in part, I want to confess to you that Richard Marley did violently ape me, as I have told you, but these others did not. They only began to start to. On May 15th, 1992, Eileen was given three more death sentences. In June 1992, Eileen pled guilty to the murder of Charles Edmund Carscadon. In November 1992, she received a fifth death sentence. In February 1993, Eileen pled guilty to the murder of Walter Gino Antonio and was sentenced to death again. No charges were brought against her for the murder of Peter Sims, as his body was never found. In all, Eileen received six death sentences. Eileen told several inconsistent stories about the unalivings. She claimed initially that all seven men had either aped or attempted to ape her while she was working as a prostitute, but later recanted and claiming a self defense sign robbery and a desire to leave no witnesses as the reason for unaliving. During an interview with the Doctarian Nick Broomfield, when Eileen thought the cameras were off, she told him that it was in fact self defense, but she could not stand being on death row, where she had been for 10 years at that point, and wanted to die. Eileen was incarcerated at the Florida Department of Corrections Bulwark Correctional Institute, death row for women. Being transferred to the Florida State Prison for execution, her appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was denied in 1996, and in 2001 petition to the Florida Supreme Court, she stated her initial intention to dismiss her legal counsel and terminate all pending appeals. I unalived these men, she wrote, robbed them, as cold as ice. And I'll do it again too. There's no chance in keeping me alive, if anything, because I'll kill again. I have hate crawling through my system. I am so sick of hearing this. She's crazy stuff. I've been evaluated so many times. I'm competent, sane, and I'm telling the truth. I'm one who seriously hates human life and would kill again. While her attorneys argued that she was not mentally competent to make such a request, Eileen insisted that she knew what she was doing, and a court appointed panel of psychiatrists agreed. In 2022, Eileen began accusing prison matrons of tainting her food with dirt, saliva, and urine. She said she had overheard conversations among prison personnel trying to get me so pushed over the brink by them I wind up committing suicide before the execution and wishing to ape me before execution. She also complained of strip searches, tight handcuff, door knocking, freaking window checks, low water pressure, mildew on her mattress, and catcalling. In distaste and a pure hatred towards me, Eileen threatened to boycott showers and food trays when certain officers were on duty. In the meantime, my stomach's growling away, and I'm taking showers through the sink of my cell. Her attorney stated that Miss Eileen really just wants to have proper treatment, humane treatment, until the day she's executed. He added she believes that she's written. In the weeks before her execution, Eileen gave a series of interviews to documentarian Nick Broomfield and talked about being taken away to meet God and Jesus and the angels and whatever is beyond the beyond. Her final interview, she once again changed that her mind was tortured at BCI and her head crushed by sonic pressure, food poisonings, and other abuses. Complaining to make her appear insane or to drive her insane, she also turned on her interviewer. You sabotaged my ass, society and the cops and the system. A aped woman got executed and was used for books and movies and shit. Her final on camera words were thanks a lot, society, for railroading my ass. Don Boltix, a childhood friend of Eileen, later told Broomfield that her verbal abuse was directed at society and media in general and not to him specifically. Eileen's execution by lethal injection took place on October 9th, 2002. She declined her last meal, which could have been anything under $20, and opted for a cup of coffee instead. Her last words were, yes, I would like just to say I'm sailing with the rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, like June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all. I'll be back. I'll be back. She died at 9:47 a.m. She was the second woman in Florida and 10th in the United States to be executed since 1976 United States Supreme Court decision restoring capital punishment. After her death, Eileen's body was cremated. Eileen's ashes were scattered beneath a tree in her native Michigan by Eileen's childhood friend Don Talkins. At Eileen's request, Natalie's Merchant song Carnival from the album Tiggerly 1995 was played at her funeral. Eileen spent many hours listening to this album on death row. When Merchant found out about this, she gave permission to use the song in the closing credits of Nick Bloomfield's documentary.